All right, guys. So I am streaming. Actually, it's not a live stream. It's just a recording. I'm just recording a video. I'm gonna fool around on my paladin Retfavre, and I wanted to talk about a few things. Um, I see a lot of misinformation. Maybe not on purpose. I think a lot of people just haven't experienced classic WoW in its fullness, whether it be originally or through private server content. And I've been playing a lot of content for quite a few years now, and been playing the game since its original release through all the expansions, etc. And I predominantly play a paladin, so I've had a lot of experience, and I really just wanted to debunk a lot of information, and I also wanted to talk about some of the questions that I have as far as regarding beta testing, because I'd like to have some answers, and that'll significantly change whether or not paladins are stronger than the other classes or balanced with the other classes. And what I mean by that is that the way they developed the paladin class, and they didn't do it on purpose by any means, but they're a lot stronger than the majority of the classes in PvP, and I mean a lot stronger. And this is ret paladins specifically, and then in PvE content, they're significantly weaker. In fact, you don't need them at all. It's just a fact. A ret paladin will not improve your kill times on bosses, or improve your speed clears, or improve your survivability. Because a holy paladin can basically do the same things a ret paladin does, but just as good, and heal at the same time. So, and as far as holy paladins, they're good, period. So, I guess let's debunk some myths that we've got. Before I do that, I'm just going to fiddle around. I'm terrible at multitasking.
What's on your mind?
I just want to see what I've got. I might need to respec ret. Maybe a battleground will pop. I have a bunch of gear. I don't know which one I want to wear. It's the downside to being a paladin too, is you'll have, like 5 bags filled with gear. I've got some grenades. Got some arcane bombs.
Inventory
Let's
is
have
full.
some fun with the arcane bombs first, I guess. So, the first myth that I wanted to sort of debunk is that the best healer in the game, right? Everyone, for the most part, will tell you it's Priest. Well, recently, I don't want to give him credit for this because he actually went and looked at the data, which is, data doesn't lie, is that Paladins are the strongest healer. And I have no doubt that that's true. In fact, the only time any other healer is going to have a remote chance of beating a Paladin out in healing is the early content. Molten Core, BWL, and then mid content, AQ, you might have a slight chance just because Paladins are the main dispeller, so there's several boss fights where they don't get to do healing, or they do almost no healing. So that's when the priests kind of get a chance to catch up. But I can say confidently that the only priests that are beating paladins out are the ones soaking up several innervates. And the only priest that I've ever had a trouble topping on meters was an officer at the time, and he had it set up so that he would get all the innervates, literally all of them. And we had actually been running with too many resto druids at the time.
I can't carry anymore.
Oh, fuck, my inventory's full, I suck. What do I want to get rid of? Noggin Fogger? Yeah, we go. So, as far as the strength of the Holy Paladin, they're far and away the best healers. They have the most healing output, the most efficient healing output, and the most mana efficiency. Of course, that comes into play with stacking crit, and if anyone doesn't know, crit allows you to have your mana returned on spellcast for a heal, so that's a pretty big deal. Once you get into next Ramus, the tier 3 gear is developed so specifically for your spec by then, holy, not red, sorry guys, that you're just light years ahead of the other healers if you can get an early tier bonus. And then in my opinion, the only bonus that's better than the paladins is the shamans, because it's the exact same one, but they hit more targets. So they spread a buff that increases damage or armor or mana per 5 or whatever based on who you hit with it throughout the raid. And that's really undervalued. Not a lot of people pay attention to it. Maybe because the content will be cleared regardless if you have that or not, but I think it's a big deal because if you have the ideal 7 holy paladins, which is ideal, you want to raid with 7 holy paladins, it's very strong, then that's 7 people spreading raid buffs just by doing their job. It's pretty significant, and it's very powerful.
How are you?
Actually, that's what I spec into recently. Am I red? Ooh, good thing I didn't buy a respec. Am I PvP or PvE red? Kind of wacky. I like it though. All right. So it looks like I said F the protection scenario and just go
see you soon.
All right. Well, maybe a BG will pop. Let's go check it out. So yeah, as a small explanation to what the gear I'm wearing right now is I don't hit very hard, unfortunately, because I did not raid as Ret for good reason. I'd like to be the best at what I do in my guild scenario. So if I'm a damage dealer, I'm going to want to be the #1 DPS, and if I'm a healer, I want to be the #1 healer. It's not even that I'm obsessed with paladins, really. I started playing paladins early, and it just stuck. But they've always been kind of strong, to be fair. But the main reason that I play paladin in vanilla is because I like being overpowered, and they are. They're absurdly strong. It's the small things. So not only do we have the most healing in the game and the best mana efficiency in the game, if that wasn't good enough for you, we also have the least amount of threat output for heals. You could heal double a druid or priest and still not pull aggro off of them. And they have a lot of trouble pulling aggro off tanks, even in high-geared tank and DPS content. A healer with a strong, quick output early on in a fight and a raid can easily pull aggro, except for paladins. Paladins are set. And they have a built-in limited invulnerability potion, so you save money on consumes. Being a bubble is pretty insane. And I digressed a lot from why I'm wearing this gear. So I wear a mixed match of 2.5 and 2. The reason for that is that I want maximum amount of spell damage on this. It was previously a gear build for a Spell Reckoning Bomb, which does very good. It's very strong. But recently I just wanted to test to see if my Ashbringer could crit for a decent amount, even though I don't have a lot of strength gear. Let's see. What am I missing? Missing something. It's my neck. I know it is. I have grenades for days. It looks so shatter power. Well, might as well consume that. Make some room. Need blood. As you can see, I haven't raided in a while, so I'm just sitting on stuff. I have my sappers. That's good. My arcanes are set. Okay. So I guess my next thing that I wanted to talk about, reactive disc, nope, is the fact that we are very strong as Ret in PvP, and a lot of classes are considered the best at something, and I think that the WoW did a good job of rock, paper, scissoring it, right? That if you look at old information, they talk about how broken rogues are or warlocks, and I think that's still true. They're very strong classes, but they're not as completely ridiculous as people might make them out to be. Maybe because people know how to cheat certain mechanics, or they know the matchups better after so many years, but regardless, I'd like to discuss how strong paladins are. So I rarely duel as a pure Ret Paladin. Maybe that is why I have better success. A pure Ret Paladin, I'm sure, is strong, but a pure Ret Paladin isn't really in control of a fight that well. Ironically, so maybe I had a poor choice of words. So they have great control, but not control of the means of damage. They can't control when they do their significant bursts and stuff like that. They actually have more CC because they have repentance usually, so they have more CC. But as far as being able to determine when they want to do something, I think I just left my trinket or my necklace in my bank, guys. So I'm just gonna say screw it. All right, what do we want? War song probably feels fastest.
Hello.
What's the queue time. Oh god, this is gonna be terrible. 29 minutes. Might not have a BG today, guys. I'm gonna go explore while I wait on this. So maybe I can find somebody out in the world and try and have a little fun with them. I think this is south. It's been a long time since I've looked at my macros. There we go. Light, I'll take it. So a big part of ret PvP is actually not ret PvP. The ret PvP is more of a prot PvP. A lot of guys go into Reckoning. It's a very good talent, honestly. And the way I see it is there's 3 major builds that you can try and go. I think if we go close to Kargath, we might find a few guys. Not sure though. Okay. And those builds are based on who you want to beat the most. There is like a kind of a beat all build, but you have a better chance of also getting beat. But the 2 specs that I usually choose if I'm not raiding, because if I'm raiding, I usually 50-50 build where I can heal and still do decent when I go into a battleground or world PvP situation. But the 2 main builds are an anti-caster build and an anti-melee build. The anti-melee build is really great. In fact, I can guarantee that I'll dunk every warrior that plays the game in the melee build. I guarantee it. It doesn't matter who they are. It could be Monkey News. I'll beat them. Why I say that? There's just easy cheesing against warriors. And I've played a lot of sweaty Chinamen. Not to be obscene, but these guys were all part of the Chinese guild on this server. And I was dueling outside, and they saw that I was winning, so they came in and started challenging me in troves. I mean, like 4 of them, all spec'd properly, arms warriors, very decked out. They were wearing anywhere from a Might of Menethil, Ashbringer, or if they were unlucky, then they were wielding the Dark Edge or like a Grand Marshal Whip or something. So these guys grinded and they knew how to duel. And I mean, I won. Now, I had a lot, and I won all of them. Now, granted, I had a lot of close fights, a lot of scary, sweaty fights where I almost lost, but that was because I was running out of my cooldowns because I was constantly dueling back and forth with all of them. But what I would do is I would just rotate a sort of an I win button, which Paladins have several of them. And the big thing is that when you use like a bubble or a bop or maybe some kind of slow trap snare mechanic or something like that, or your burst mechanic to get them low, what a warrior will try and do, and they're very capable of it, is a reset. So you always want to save a trinket for a fear, because that's a big way for them to reset. And if they don't have the fear mechanic to reset you on, then they are going to try and distance gap and bandage and reset, because they do more damage than you. It's just how it is. And I have several mechanics that allow me to hit them from range, whether that be trinkets or oils or a spell or something. Like Holy Shock build is actually very strong against warriors too. But yeah, so you just don't let them reset, because you will have the upper hand pretty much the whole time. And if they try and get overly aggressive with you and you just stick it out and see if they can out damage you, then they might, but you'll have a bubble to answer for it, and you'll end them. So it's a win-win. Rogues are a very good fight too. As far as anti-melee, the problem against rogues is if they're actually under-geared, that's the only way they'll stand a chance against you. Because if they're geared enough, they'll probably crit you a lot and get the double, triple, quad Wind Fury swing from you, and you'll inevitably beat them, especially if you catch them in the back when they don't have dodge or a stun, which they don't have a trinket for. So unless they're consuming stun immunities, then you're gonna take them out. Also, they have a hard time getting past your armor. The only type of rogue that's really going to have a significant chance against you is probably a combat rogue that resets a lot, if they can reset, because if you're good, you're not going to let them. And a few undergeared subtlety rogues, maybe. I have had a loss or two against like some really, really, really good dagger rogues, but funny enough, the reason they beat me is because they never crit me. They went through like 8 minutes of a fight without a crit, which means to me that they were significantly undergeared. So they were able to reset a lot. Failure on my part in that execution. and then they never procced anything on me, so I wasn't able to hit them for their entire health bar, only like a third. As far as caster fights, those are always a lot of fun. They're a lot more even. Paladins are predominantly stronger than the other melee classes, but as far as casters go, there's an anti-caster build, and it predominantly revolves around getting immunities on CCs, getting, oh, I think I see somebody. Let's put a frost oil on just to be safe. Obviously, you're going to have like engineering damages, you have your reflectors, which kind of even things out. But a big part is if they crit you, they return damage on themselves. And it doesn't seem like a big deal because it's like, okay, well, you're only doing some of the damage they're dealing to you on the crit back. But they have a lot less health than you do, and probably less resistances. So it's going to hurt them a lot more. Okay. Well, that guy didn't fight back very much, did he? Alright, well, Ice Mage was AFK or something. I'll take it. So I guess let's look at the build I am right now. It's a good example. I can go through it. So yeah, the eye for an eye, right? I am pure ret, so if you go pure ret, there's no reason not to get that. I try and get it as much as I can, but in like certain raid builds, you're just not going to go get it. Yeah, so I guess I went max damage. I'm going holy. And the big reason I think that this is not the best PvP spec, I was really just trying to test how much damage I could do with this build, is, excuse me, Sanctity Aura is kind of not necessary. 10% damage is great and all, but what's really going to be an issue for you is the damage you take, because Paladins are really good about outlasting other classes. So you're going to want to probably run some sort of Resistance Aura or Devotion Aura, or if you're trying to heal up real quick, Concentration Aura. All of those things are extremely useful and powerful compared to Sanctity Aura, which is, you know, you're kind of giving up the main reason you're running a Paladin in the first place is just to deal some extra damage. Granted, we can hit very hard. In fact, I would say that it's extremely strong to go full ret if you have the gear for it, which I really don't. But go full ret and have a pocket healer, one Paladin, or two pocket healers, one Paladin, one Priest, who's PI. You go get your damage buff in Warsong or something, and then get the Priest to PI you on a hit. And you have so much crit stacked on your gear anyways that when you do hit, you'll probably hit somebody for like 3.5k on a non-burst. That's just critting. So it's extremely strong. And I'm sorry, when I said 3k, I don't mean 3k for everything. I mean, if you have a proc, it'll hit for 3k. So potentially 5k as if one hit. It's retarded. So, and then of course, you'd have to have your stacks of Vindication up. This guy, he's a 60 round.
That's better.
Vanishes out.
Still recharging.
Got him. Yeah, he's dead. So that's a good example of why engineering's good. Rogue's inevitably going to vanish. And burn again. Also, you'll notice that it didn't do really any damage to me. It did like 400. It's supposed to do a lot more, but my gear's got some resist, and my health bar is not bad. I have negative stamina with my sword, and I'm still at 41 and 61, so I think if you end up with another weapon, you'll probably have somewhere closer to 5k in stam, because that's the equivalent of missing the plus stam from the other weapon. And then the Ashbringer has negative 25, I think. Let's see. Negative 25. So you have negative 25, and you're missing like 28 or 30, depending on the weapon. And if it's a PvP weapon, even more. So you have to start stacking left stam. That's another reason I wear this combo of gear. For the additional stam, it's usually some of the highest stam pieces is how I determine which pieces I would wear. Let's see. What am I wearing now? Probably won't reduce his mana cost to cleanse. lens. Well, no. I can swap. So, and I am wearing a kind of a... And I don't need a darker right now. Okay, so, Ice Reflector is safer. That's going to be a hard fight. Ice Mages are kind of the hardest caster. Or second, I should say second hardest caster. So, and sorry guys, sometimes I get like ADD as a mug and just go off on tangents. But that is kind of why I'm making this video, because I did want to discuss a lot of stuff about Paladin versus other classes in both PvE and PvP content. Okay, so this is a hard fight, a hunter. Do I have it on me? I might. I do. This is going to make this a little easier. If he's not FK. Alright. So hopefully the Frost Oil procs early.
That spell.
AFK kill. Easy grub. He deserves it. So you notice that I'm not hitting that hard. I don't have the strength. So. Even my crit is not really hard. But you did notice a lot of procs, so it's another reason why I think that Ret's not necessary, because if you go like an improved Prot Holy or Holy Red or Prot Red with Seal of Righteousness, you have significantly more damage. Most of my gear is set up for it. So I have Life Stealing as the enchant. Also, I think Fiery is not bad, but they nerfed it several times on the server, so it's kind of weak now. So I just go Life Stealing. It's pretty strong. And the reason for that too is that it can crit, which would give me a stacking buff for, I think it's called Vindication or Vengeance or something like that. Vengeance, which is stacking buff that gives you more damage up to 30%. It's pretty strong. So as far as the caster matchups, you'll have a pretty balanced time with mages. Really, it just comes down to, are you going to let them spam sheep you or not? Or are you going to play defensively and column hug? And open world, obviously, you can't column hug, so you have to just put on max pressure and use some engineering trinkets. And then reflect at the right time, right? Because if you do get a good reflect off, you will dominate. And a lot of people think that PvP trinket is going to be the best in slot since you get out of a polymorph. I think it can be. It depends on the mage you're fighting. So there's one mage class or spec that I do not use it on, and that is Frostfire, because they have the potential to do burst in any element, and they're resetting you a lot regardless of the sheep. So I'll use a Frost and a Flame Reflector in that matchup as my trinkets. It's better to be defensive, because they're going to inevitably crit you as a mage. They will do damage back to themselves, which will cause them to have to reset. And if they do make a mistake, or you play it right and you get on top of them, then that's how you end them, because you're going to basically one-shot them. So even with an ice barrier, they're not going to have much health left. And they'll have only one choice: to reset and give you free full HP as a sheep, or, get owned. But yeah, as a pure fire mage, pretty easy matchup. They're going to try and burst you, maybe pump pyro you. Watch for it, reflect. If you don't have a reflector, then you have to bubble that. Otherwise, you're screwed. And that is a tricky situation. So being an engineer makes things so much easier. It's a quality of life change. Frost mages are a slow fight. You just have to let them keep hitting you, build it up, and when they go to reset or gain mana or bandage or something, that's when you work on them. Also, having trinkets that can hit mages or get them out of casting, clear casting, or something like that during... Let me just help this guy out with this quest while I'm recording. Will help you out significantly, because they're going to be trying kiting you, but if they get hit for whatever reason while trying to do a bandage or something, then yeah, it's a big deal. Warlocks, right? So this is my favorite matchup because it's a real test of skill for Paladins. Warlocks are a built-in weakness that Paladins have. He's trying to give me a warrior potion. I like it. Thank you. So a big thing about the Warlock setup is, and I probably, I hate myself for doing this, but I'm about to explain to Warlocks as well how to beat Paladins. So I'll beat about, this is not an inflated number or fake or anything, but I'll probably beat 99 out of 100 Warlocks. And the reason for that is that they're not very good. They don't know what to do. And that helps, right? So that means that Paladins can beat Warlocks pretty often. A lot of Warlocks are obsessed with the big number game winner, which works on like a lot of classes or people something that doesn't work on Paladins. You always have the ball. And that is the Succubus Soulfire technique, right? They're inevitably going to want to try that. They think it's an easy way. It's simple fix. You bubble it, kill the Succubus instantly, and then ride the Warlock until he dies. Especially if you have a Shadow Reflector, he's not going to be able to have like a Death Roller or Fury, he's going to do it himself. All of his instant cast dots going to hit him, and he'll be pretty low right after that. And if he does manage to reset on you, which would be insane, then you do have several mechanics for CCU catching him, and he doesn't have. And you have a freedom if he has a Curse of Exhaustion, which is rare. He's probably not going to have that if he's got Succubus Soulfire spec. Yeah, it's pretty much over. I've never really lost to a Warlock that tried to Succubus Soulfire me. And we have Exorcism against the Succubus, so it's not like we have to waste like a major damage move to get rid of him. Like after the Exorcism, you're probably going to kill him with one hit or two. So there'll be plenty of bubble left over to go and chase after the Warlock or reset or get a column or something. In other matchups, like a Fell Hunter, you probably just wait for them to send the pet in, kill the Fell Hunter pretty fast. They don't ever use Imp. They do, it'd be interesting. So it's an interesting play. It could work, but we can also one-shot the Imp, so it's not the best. So the only way a Warlock's really going to beat you, and I will say this, a good Warlock will beat me every time. Every single time, hands down. Doesn't matter how many gadgets or trinkets or whatever I use. They use it. Voidwalker is a great reset. I've never really purging anything, getting rid of it. Any kind of burst damage could probably take out the Voidwalker shield and then maybe half of a Warlock's health, but they do have a lot of health, and they have demon armor, so it doesn't look good for you. They'll smoke you. And if it's open world, then if you happen to get lucky and beat them, then they're going to use the Soulstone. In fact, I'm not above using fire protection and shadow protection potions to even the playing field in world PvP. So the Warlocks are the hardest matchup, and they are, we got a war song. And they are probably the best PvP caster in the game. I mean, if I'm honest. Here we go, we have a Shadow Priest. So speaking of Shadow Priest, right? Nuclear Doom's still around. I take so many screenshots with this guy. I can't believe he's still playing. It's just fun to have the Ashbringer next to the Hand of Rag. So another big thing is that Shadow Priests are PvP machines. They're so dominant in so many ways. The Paladin is going to have a hard time early content beating a Shadow Priest. Probably impossible. Not impossible. I've beaten a few, but if they're good, you're unlikely going to get that win. Same thing as a Warlock, right? You're going to want to have Shadow Protection, and you're going to want to purge everything that they put on you because they're just going to keep stacking damage. It's going to be pretty tough. So without the reduced mana cost in the beginning of the game, it's just hard to beat with all the dispelling that you've got to do. And they can still do damage while applying those dots and stuff, so it's kind of lame. Another big one is that later on in content, the scaling isn't as good for Shadow Priest. So early game, Shadow Priests have a retarded amount of damage without needing much gear. Shadow War Pain does a crazy ton of damage. And they still do great damage later on, but it's manageable. And you'll have some shadow resistance built into your gear by then, or just maybe the additional stamina or something. So the thing that I would say is important is this building the right gear, mana regen, trying to outlast them, because really what you're going to do is you're going to have to cleanse like a mother.
That's still recharging.
this guy. I'm trying to bomb this guy, but it's not letting me use my arcane bombs. Do I need to? I have them on me. Oh, now they're working. Okay. Whatever. Let's do healing for now. And maybe change this to wisdom. I don't need to hit that hard. I got nuclear. So, Shadow Priest you can kill 100% of the time late game though. Well, why is that? You hopefully will have a decent weapon by then. Frost oiled. So frost oil, big thing, right? I use it because we don't have any slow mechanics, and that's honestly, it's going to help you win so many fights against casters, melee, whatever. If you don't have a frost oil, you're making mistakes. Also, it has a chance to proc other things like my lifesteal proc off of my sword, my seal of command, additional hits, whatever. If you have like a hand of justice. Another big one is tier 3, right? Once you get, it's like what, on my red helmet, I have tier 3. Another big reason why you want to be a holy I'm gonna purge my buffs. You did that. Is that tier 3, the 8-piece is massive. I mean, against the Shadow Priest, you heal yourself for, I think it's like 200 built in. Yeah, 200 health every time you dispel. So that gets bonus healing. It doesn't get a lot, perfect and small, but it gets bonuses from your healing. Oh, he's gonna take my heal. Which is big. It's very big. You can literally just dispel the Shadow Priest the whole time. He'll fear you, that's fine. When you come back, use a Shadow Reflector on his burst. He's gonna, I mean, really, by the time you're wearing tier 3, Shadow Priests have some sick gear, so they will hit you very hard if you don't watch it. He's dead. Okay. Like your sword, man. I have it. I just realized I have a Frost Reflector. There we go. Let's put a shadow on for these warlocks. You notice I'm not wearing a lot of damage trinkets. This, like I said, it's just not necessary. I mean, if you do, it's great. You could like one-shot people potentially. That's great for the melee. Oh, nice one hit. Alright, so on druids, I light Crusader, I'm sorry for more damage because there's so much armor. The holy damage is not mitigated though, so it's kind of a big deal. But yeah, so tier 3, you literally just hold a two-hander. Your spell damage gear, I would say, if you have a spell damage set, because it gives you damage and healing, so that's a nice little mix around. You wear your healing gear in the beginning of the fight, dispel everything. They start going eventually. It won't take long. They don't have great MP5. And then you can start getting aggressive. You start putting pressure on them with the two-hander, swap, keep dispelling, and you just tick them down. They're going to hate your guts. We have like the best Shadow Priest in the server, and a few times. That was a disgusting human being. But he's used to just smacking people because Shadow Priests are so dominant. So once you have that tier 3 bonus, it's just an easy play. Let me get so that's pretty much it for the caster matchup. I mean, there's Ellie Shamans. They're so hard. Good luck. They purge everything off you. It's pretty hard to deal with. It's the slow play. It really is. Column hugging, hoping that they let you get on top of them. Same thing. But the LA Shamans are slaughterfest. So as far as weaponry, right? What I'd like to go over a little bit, and it's going to be kind of hard to spin this PG, and I don't want to screw these guys over, is the weapons to look for both PvE and PvP. Well, so I'm kind of going against the grain here when I say PvE. So if you're a red paladin in a raiding guild, it is doable. You will inevitably have a few fights you have to heal on. Why is that? Because there are fights that if you have mana, you're legitimately getting screwed. You're going to get one shot, killed, your mana's going to get burned, it's going to blow up other people next to you, other melee, stuff like that. Several bosses throughout all the content where you just can't do it. So I'm going to do that.
That's still recharging. That spell isn't ready yet.
So yeah, you just be ready for that. Okay,
I can't cast that yet.
Oh, I wish I'd gotten that done earlier. Oh, you did. So it's cool. If you are going ret, you're probably going to want a Bone Reaver's Edge. The armor pen is still very good for you, even though like half your damage is holy. Still good. Your auto attacks are a ton of damage. It's a big deal. And if you have Reckoning, it's easy to apply and easy to build up the damage very fast. And Silk Crusader, added bonus to it is actually pretty nasty. So Bone Reaver's Edge early in Molten Core. Arcanite Reaper is also very strong for the mana return, but I mean, you don't really need that. It's just got great swing time on it though. And then of course, for PvP, those are good, but I would say that in actuality, you probably want Shadow Strike. Let's go take a look here. I think it's in Molten Core. No, I'm AFK in a BG. I'm a terrible person. Who drops it? Goldman? I could be wrong. I forget who drops it. Protect this flag carrier real quick. So Shadow Strike or Nature Strike? I mean, it's called one of those. It's one of these guys, right? There it is, Shadow Strike. So it transforms into Thunderstrike. Okay, cool. So you can have this spear that really is kind of crap when you look at it the first time, but what it does is it has a great proc for PvP. Miss! Oh, he's got all his buffs up. Nice. So that proc is really strong because it benefits from spell damage bonuses, coefficients. Several weapons in the game do, but this is a two-hander, which is significantly more useful for us. So a lot of paladins are going to go and get the AV weapon. Someone remind me what it's called. Unstoppable Force, right? What? Oh, we won. Nice. The Unstoppable Force, very good weapon, absolutely phenomenal weapon early game. But this one is a little bit better because if you enchant it appropriately and go Seal of Righteousness back and you're doing your Reckoning Bomb, you're going to have a lot of procs off of it and a lot of extra damage. And that damage can get pretty high and it can crit. So all awesome things, which could potentially give you a ton of damage eventually. My dog's barking. So I'll pause the screen and clip this out.